Okay, let's see what we can do in this quick card format in terms of the time. The more you fill up of a given scene, the less kind of filling that we have to do with inks in order to make a scene look nicely deep and rich and saturated. So we're going to fill in quite a bit so that the necessity of additional tone, I'm not going to say won't be there, but we won't need as much. So, that being said, when you fill in with things like sky figures, large sky figures, it takes up a large portion of the space of a given scene. So that'll work very nicely for this format. Okay, I'm just coloring this Milky Way large with this Danube blue, and then I'm going in it with this pen just to give it a little bit of extra variation, perhaps. That one didn't look too different, though, so we'll see. Every kind of pad-pen combination works a little bit differently because of the amount of ink on it. Alright, it looks fairly mono value, so I didn't really alter it too much. Okay, so that is done. Now, I'm not worried about this ink in between here, okay? Because I'll fill it in with some additional tone. Alright, so let's go on with let's try this Bahama blue here, okay? Now, what I want is, I want there to be some of this nice change in variation here. This Bahama blue is a little bit black, as I'm not using a clean brush, but it'll get darker out there, so I'm not worried about that. Let's go in with this cleaner one here. Okay, now if we want certain stars to remain nice and light, which simply means to not color them out, okay? So I'll leave some of the color scheme or the lighting scheme of the actual image as is, okay? Or if I come into those areas where there's some stars like that, maybe I just come into it with these lighter tones that I'm going to be applying, but when I reach the Danube blue, again, I won't fill in everything, okay? So you can color darker images with lighter colors and still retain, you know, the image itself. They'll just be darker, areas of it. Okay, that is one version of blue in here. Now, let's kind of brighten it up a little bit. Let's go with a Marvy blue. Okay, this is the number 10 light blue. Marvy pads are very bright in terms of their intensity. Okay. There isn't a certain amount of numbers of inks that you need to bring into your scenes in terms of doing this technique, process. It's just a matter of, how much you want to. The more that you bring into it, this is a Caribbean blue, it's a little bit of a warmer blue. The more you bring into it, potentially the brighter and deeper and more saturated it can look, but, I've done them with as few as, maybe 2 colors or something like that, and it looks fine. It doesn't look quite as deep, but one of the things you can do is, some of my other videos, you've seen me spray seal the scenes, and that in itself kind of intensifies and brightens and deepens the amount of saturation, so you can do that too. But if you're in a hurry, just make it a couple colors and you're fine. It's more of a pastel type of tone, that you end up with, but it looks good though. Okay, this is a dark Prussian blue. Okay, it's just called Prussian blue, but it is very dark. Okay, I'm just going a little bit more on the perimeter for here. See, the darker I go on the perimeter, the lighter, by contrast, the areas that I've retained that lightness look. Okay, All right. I really like when I get into those darker tones, though, because everything seems to come together really well. There's a really nice intensity to everything. Oh, I thought this was a black. I was wondering why it looked that way. This is a bottle green. Well, we'll make this a kind of a greenish blue tinge then, okay? See a little bit of difference there? Kind of more of an aqua turquoisey looking green on the outside perimeter. I usually do this one kind of in violets. I really like that combination, but I do like my greenish tinges to my blue tone compositions too. It brings in a little bit of warmth having that green in there, since one of the components of green is yellow, of course. All right, so let me go with the color that I thought I was using. This is black, okay? Go all the way to black. It doesn't look so dark black because it is fairly wet on the side, so I'm not getting a full saturation of this black here. I could keep going, and then it'll get darker and darker. But in this quick card format, we won't do too much of that. Okay. Going with this black around the perimeter, kind of frames things off. We'll get fairly dark with the imagery that we're going to use on here. I think I'm going to use all VersaFine black for my imagery on here to make sure it's not kind of I don't get translucent images. Okay, so that is that. Moving along, let's go to the VersaFine. VersaFine's a very dark black pigment ink, okay? All right, now I'm kind of on my Nature Set number 1 usage kick right now, you might say, because I have it out on my table, and kind of when I'm using it, I figured it's time to get some samples done with these. I haven't done too many samples with these Nature Sets in the past. Okay, a nice dark image right there, a nice bold image against that dark background sky. Okay, go with a few more trees right there, just to kind of carry that out to the edge of the page. Okay, like that. Okay. And then, I've done this before in a previous scene. I'm going to take one of my island stamps. Now this is where I'm kind of mixing and matching. I did a couple, or one scene that was only using Nature Set number 1 imagery, but I'll do this right here because inevitably people kind of mix and match their, make sure I inked up enough of this. Put this right down here in the foreground. This is one of my island stamps. Okay. I just want to kind of make a platform for an image here to come. Something for it to stand on right there. And let's put a few of these little tiny rocks around here, kind of making it look like these are kind of the shallows right here. Put some of those rocks around the shoreline, perhaps, where things get a little bit more shallow. So that it's kind of given it the banks a little bit of texture. Okay, and let's see if this is going to be too big. Maybe it's a little big. Maybe I'll go with my smaller version of my deer silhouette. Looking over its surroundings there. About like so. A nice silhouette of a kind of a focal point in the foreground like that. And let's add some reeds here in the foreground. Like you see that grass that I've drawn into the shoreline right over there. Well, what we're doing here is we are reiterating kind of that same type of texturing here in the foreground. But it'll be larger versions of it. Okay, that's one version of it. And I think it can stand to use some even larger versions of it. Let's see, we're going back in the distance, or in this case, a little bit more forward. Okay. So maybe now this becomes the foreground where the deer before was the foreground. Okay. Something like that. So a nice foreground right there. Kind of puts us as viewers kind of in the bushes or something of that sort, looking into the scene. And this is where I'm kind of assessing if I want to add in anything else. Let's go with the kind of an overhanging tree here. I'll make it look a little bit more full, maybe. Okay. Some of my favorite things to do are adding in a little bit of a texture and contrast and light in a very specific way. And that's with these little gel pens here. We've kind of lost some of our brightest of areas out here, or lightest, I should say, in the form of these little stars out here from our Milky Way stamp, for the very fact that we colored in a lot of it, right? So this is a way to kind of multi-layer that Milky Way type of texturing out here by reintroducing the reverse dot, okay? Because that's what that Milky Way stamp is. It's about a lot of reverse dots within that given imagery. Okay. And this is blue toned, so why not use a blue pen as well? So you can get multiple hues. Well, it's not really, white isn't really a hue, but multiple marks, different values of marks, but in this case, we can bring color into that. And it just wakes up these areas that would otherwise be a little bit less interesting than not having it, and it's a simple and quick thing to do to add that mark back in there. Okay, and there you have it. That was a pretty quick scene. I could, take more time and I could shade certain areas on here if I, allowed that to dry and if that was stamped out in dye-based ink. But, pretty quick scene, and it makes a pretty, I think there's a bold statement to this one right here. And certainly quick and easy with the background, for the most part, already addressed in those first two impressions. And then you just bring in some extra tone, silhouette your objects right over the top of it, and you have a complete visual statement from foreground, subject matter, midground, foreground again up top in the form of framing, and you have your background sky and reflected sky down here in the water. Water scenes can go very fast when you can do whatever you've done up in the sky down here on land as well, just in the form of a reflection. Okay, hope you enjoyed the scene. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop us a note in the comment section. And if you like this video, hope you like and subscribe.